Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Alan Fleischmann, founder, president, and CEO of Laurel Strategies, and Strive Masiyiwa, group executive chairman of Econet Wireless Global.
Great. I'm so glad we're together. This is such a pleasure to be here, and I think, Strive, we are the last formal part of this two-day Concordia Summit. So I want to congratulate, actually, Nick and Matt for a pretty amazing 2 days of bringing together some extraordinary individuals. And it's very fitting that the last person to be speaking at this summit would be someone that actually has the values and, frankly, the leadership that you have. This is called the Ceo Statesmanship Imperative. It's a term that I coined a few years ago, and it's part of what I do every day, searching for heroes, leaders from the private sector who spend a good deal of their time making big changes in the world through their activities, their priorities, their work in both civil society and working with partners in the public sector. There's nobody probably who personifies that kind of leadership than you. I probably shouldn't mention that you're only 57 years old, but when we talk about what you've been doing and how long you've been in public life as a CEO, it's been a long time. I started hearing about you well before I met you years ago, and you became the first CEO that I think anyone had ever heard of from the continent of Africa who took a company and made it global in a way that, frankly, few had ever seen before. You're a tech CEO before tech CEOs were cool and fashionable. And you've been involved in extraordinary amount of enterprises and initiatives, both here and abroad. So I'm excited to have a conversation with you today. It's a great honor to have you here. And I wanted to get into some questions, but I better just tell you a little bit about Econet, if I could. When you started the company, 70% of the entire continent had never even heard the sound of a telephone ring. There was no penetration of internet. There was no internet at all, right? Yeah. And actually today, where are you now, in 5 continents around the world?
Well, no, most African countries.
Yeah, but even beyond, right?
Yeah.
We're in beyond
Latin America and so forth.
What's amazing to me is when you get to know Strive and his wife and his 6 children, they do extraordinary work in their foundation work, and they get involved in causes, frankly, that few do. You fill the gap and you do it well. So this idea of the CEO statesman is you, in my opinion, and I'm very glad to be able to sit down and take a moment to honor you. You're the signer of the Giving Pledge, and you're on the board of the Rockefeller Foundation. We share a good friend who runs that as well. Yeah. So I want to get a sense of hearing about your beginning. If you could tell us a little bit about where you're from. You know, you have this wonderful quote, "Big visions require humble beginnings." Tell us a little bit about your humble beginnings.
Well, first of all, it's a great privilege and honor to be here, and thank you for those kind remarks. As you said, I'm 57. I was born in Zimbabwe when it was called Rhodesia, but we were kicked out right in the beginning, so we went to live in a neighboring country called Zambia. And then I ended up in England, and I went to university in England and studied engineering and went home to the independent Zimbabwe. And at the age of 26, I started my own business when it wasn't the cool thing to do. And those were my humble beginnings. So the rest is well recorded.
But when you actually started your business at 26, how did you do that? It wasn't like you just come back, right? You had just been overseas. How did that happen, and who supported you, and what mentors did you have then that actually could see that you had the vision that you had?
Well, you know, it wasn't easy because I was in a country that the president said we were socialists. And when I said I was in business, you know, they called me a petit bourgeois and things like that. But that as it may, I started with what must be the equivalent of $75 or something today. And I didn't start in telecommunications, even though I was a telecommunications engineer. I quit my job, and I started a construction company. Well, what I could call a construction company. I clean people's windows and stuff, you know, fix their gates and doors. But built up my little bit of capital from there and continued to build out my business. Then the mobile revolution happened, around about 93, when everybody started talking about mobile. I'd been tracking it because I was a telecoms engineer. And I decided that this is something I should do. But I ran into a huge wall called Robert Mugabe. And I'm sure you remember him. And he didn't like me at all. And that's to put it mildly.
And how old were you then? You're still 26, 27 years old?
No. I was in my 30s by then. But goodness, we had an almighty fallout.
Yeah.
And I ended up taking the government to court, which is not something you do every day, particularly his government. But I actually sued the government to break the monopoly of the public telephone company. And that was,
Yeah, that's a big deal.
It was a big deal.
Yeah.
5 years fighting in the courts. But eventually the Constitutional Court broke the monopoly and allowed me to set up. But after that, my relationship with the government completely collapsed, and I had to leave. And I haven't been back in 18 years.
Even now with the change of government?
No, now with I haven't been back, but I'm happy, you know, with the change of government is fine. I get on well with the guys that are there now. But the
emotional side of that still...
It's still there, yeah. But I left and I moved to South Africa, which is a neighboring country to us. And in a way, it was an extraordinary breakthrough for me as an entrepreneur. Now I could really do stuff.
Right.
Of course, I literally left the business and everything I had built behind. And that went on to become a significant business, and we still own a majority in it. But I left and took on Africa and started to do things in as far afield as Nigeria, and I went to New Zealand and started a mobile company there, you know, and had a lot of fun.
And been growing ever since?
Kind of, yeah.
How many offices are there today?
Sorry?
How many offices are there today at Econet? How many?
Oh, goodness. I mean, the various businesses that we do, I guess, maybe 30 countries or something like that. So we didn't just do mobile, we moved on into other areas of communications.
One of the things you're known for, and known proudly, not only in the continent of Africa, but now more broadly globally, is you talk about values. And you've been talking about values in corporate leadership well before anybody else did. What are your core principles, your values that you live by and that became part of the culture, and how did you make that part of the culture of your company?
Well, first of all, you know, I'm God-fearing, so I'm a man of faith, and I wanted to live the principles. But you employ people from many different faiths and beliefs, so yours are personal, but you want to project it from within you. And I work and live in Africa, where there are extraordinary challenges that face the communities within which we're operating. And so I made it clear to the people that work with me that this had to be the way we had to do business was that we were there to reach out to the needs of our communities. And that wasn't enough to make money in these markets. We had to be, I'll give you an example. In Zimbabwe, though I'm not there was an outbreak of cholera. And I've just got off the phone with our senior people there. They are out, we released $25 million, they're out fighting cholera. The entire senior management is. They don't need me to tell them
what to do.
What to do, because these are the values, this is the community in which we work. So that's where it comes from.
There's a great quote from you, which I love. It's identify a human need and then help solve it. That's something you said before.
Yes, I said, well, I paraphrase it from a great American evangelist of the last century who said, if you want to be successful in life, identify a human need and reach out to solve it, and the rest will take care of itself. And that's become a mantra within both our foundational work
and your corporate work.
And our corporate work, yeah.
I mean, a few years ago, you and I were just talking about that. The divide between public sector, private sector, and civil society was so great that you would have these conversations like we're having now, and it seemed like they were all very distinct and foreign things from one another. But now you can actually say the same principles that guide you in your foundation work can be translated into your corporate work and vice versa. That is
so true. You know, I didn't enter philanthropy as a, you know, I didn't kind of get an epiphany to say, you know, made a lot of money, let me go into philanthropy. As I've often said, when I run my construction company, back in the early 90s, late 80s, my workers became afflicted with HIV/AIDS. And they were dying. I was losing 10 workers a week. Wow. And having to bury young men and women. And I thought, what am I going to do for these people? And so I came up with this idea with my wife that maybe we should take their kids and send them to school. And that was all we wanted to do, was take these kids in and send them to school. We couldn't institutionalize them, but we would find their relatives, maybe a grandmother or something, and pay for their school fees, pay for their upkeep, uniforms, and become parents to these kids.
And follow them and track them and take care of them.
Yeah. We thought it was going to be 100.
How many were there?
But 20 years later, 250,000 went through that program with us.
Wow. Amazing.
So you know, you kind of, you take it from there. But when I joined the Rockefeller board, I just stepped off after 15 years, as you know. I was the longest serving trustee.
I know.
And I then learned about philanthropy in a deeper sense, because they're kind of, I learned not to just respond to issues that emerge, but now to begin to the tools of how you identify solutions, look to the deep causes of challenges in your society, be a little bit more upfront in your search for solutions.
Now, Strive is actually, he's one of the most extraordinarily confident and humble people I've ever known. He actually gets involved in the agendas of countries well beyond your own. And you know, you'll find him working on issues that matter, even in the United States, where he'll go to these foundations and you'll go to the US government and you'll say, you're missing something here. Yeah. And he'll convene folks who don't come together normally, and in a very extraordinary way, you get them to do things beyond party lines. You get people to do things because of the mission and goal, and you're very humble. You actually don't tell people you're doing it, but those who know, know. Mm. It's quite amazing.
Well, you know, the greatest philanthropy, and this is where, you know, for us as business leaders, if you see philanthropy in terms of putting money into something, you've missed it. The greatest philanthropy actually comes from the skill that puts you where you are, which is that you're a leader. Mm-hmm. Okay, and we are leading generationally because our businesses are not linked to party political cycles.
Well, we're actually living in a time right now where people don't have a lot of confidence in the public sector.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so when that confidence sort of, it's not an either or. We're not trying to replace the public sector, but we can be complementary. We can bring people that normally aren't talking to each other to talk to each other.
I have a question for you I know they're going to make us wrap up earlier than I want to, and we have a special honor that we want to bestow on you because you are here and we're so grateful that you are here. If you had to, as a mentor to so many and literally hundreds of thousands of people, and I was saying to you earlier backstage, I can go almost nowhere in the world and not find someone who, in a leadership position, who hasn't already met with you. It's amazing how much you must be on the road. Those who mentor you, if you had to pick one person that you have seen as your role model, that one single person that has been a mentor to you, because I think what you represent to so many is you are a mentor to many in the private sector and in philanthropy, who would that person be?
Well, you know, I just literally arrived from Ghana, Accra, Ghana, where we were burying Kofi Annan. And when he stepped down as UN Secretary General, Raj Shah and myself were sent by Bill Gates to go and talk to him about setting up, chairing a program for African agriculture. And this is how we set up Agra.
Wow. Yeah.
So it was Raj and myself who had with Sylvia Matthews. Burwell, she became cabinet
President of American University now.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, and he became an incredible mentor to me. I spoke to that man every week for the last 10 plus years.
Wow.
And so his memory is so sharp in my mind. And one of the things he always used to say to me was, you know, the greatest challenge we face in society today is indifference and selfishness. He says, you know, indifference, he says, when we think of people causing problems, only those who are indifferent are giving them the space. He says, so I learned from him the need not to be indifferent.
You know, there's this wonderful Elie Wiesel quote, the opposite of love is not hate,
that's right,
but indifference.
And of course, he was a great mentor too.
I was on the Holocaust Board with you.
We worked on the Holocaust Museum of the United States.
Well,
he was a great man.
Well, Strive, you represent so much. As a person who works with leaders in the private sector and helps them with their philanthropy as well, you are the mentor to me.
Thank you.
And to so many leaders, and we're so grateful that you're here today. You should know that he has probably the largest social media following of any business leader on the planet, and we are very honored that he's here today. So thank you, Strive, and we look forward to more.
Appreciate it. Thank you.